All right, so you've completed some marathons. You might have even completed some ultra marathons. You're training 4, 5, maybe even 6 days a week, but you're not getting any fitter. You're not afraid of discomfort. In fact, you may even like it. Eventually, you start to think, why am I not getting fitter? Am I not capable of running an ultra marathon? Is this just how it's gonna be? Well, if that sounds like you, then this video is for you, right? This video isn't gonna lay out where to put a run on a calendar, how many miles you should run on Saturday and Sunday, but what it will do is it'll give you some clarity. Clarity behind pacing, behind effort, behind consistency and why that matters. It's gonna give you clarity on how to fit an ultra training plan into your life, right? We all have busy schedules, right? We have work stress, we have family stress, we have obligations. At home, we have obligations and things we want to do in our social life. And all of that can't go away just because we have this big goal, all right? So before we get into it though, let me give you some context. I ran cross country and track when I was in middle school and high school, but I was never this standout runner. I definitely didn't win any races. It was just something that I enjoyed doing. I enjoyed the accessibility of it. I enjoyed the fact that it was just me and my efforts that mattered. I lived out in the country, and so I was able to just go out and run on these, back country roads, and it was something that I really did enjoy. Shortly after high school, though, I joined the military and moved away from home, moved away from my parents, and really lost focus on running. Started hanging out with friends on weekends, drinking a lot of beer, eating food that definitely wasn't healthy for me. Fast forward a few years, I was sitting at a table at a burger joint across from a friend of mine, and he was telling me how he had just finished a marathon. He was telling me about his training, and honestly, it all sounded pretty miserable. But then he said one thing that kind of clicked. He told me how there was less than 1% of the US population at that time anyways that had finished a marathon. Whether or not that was true, I don't know, but that was the thing that kind of reignited it all for me. It wasn't I wanted to be part of this, elite group, but it was the thought of, doing something hard again, right? Focusing on a singular event and then training for it. So I got back into running, and what everyone did at that time, or what they still do, is I found a plan online and I just tried to follow it. Some days I had to miss, some days I stacked miles next to another day. I pushed harder probably when I shouldn't have. I ran longer probably than I should have. I progressed faster, and it worked until it didn't. I remember I had shin splints a lot. I had plantar fasciitis for a really, really long time. And I felt like I kept getting fitter and then had to start over until I started really looking at running a different way. And, it dawned on me that runners getting injured, it's not a fitness problem. It was really a decision-making problem. Once I started training differently, thinking in cycles instead of just stacking workout on workouts, I started getting more consistent and less injured. Because of that, my friends started to notice. They were asking me questions like what workouts I'm doing, what training plan I'm following, and why aren't you as injured as the rest of us? Now, at first, I wasn't looking to be a running coach at that time. I did want to coach basketball coaching. It was something that I was really passionate about at the time, but I couldn't ignore all the questions, so I started helping them. But it wasn't the normal help that they were used to getting when they talked about running with someone else. It wasn't, what workouts, prescribing a workout to them or adding intensity here or anything. It was about decision making. It was more about why things are on their plan, that's on their plan, why they shouldn't be pushing as hard on their easy days, why they should take time off when, insert body part here starts to hurt, right? At that point, after helping so many people and having so many conversations, that is when run coaching for me started to become more intentional. Once I started coaching this way, I started to realize a pattern. There were different runners, different goals, but the pattern kept emerging to where you would see fitness build and then you would see some time off because of something would come up. So take one of my athletes, for example. On paper, he was an experienced ultra. He had multiple ultras under his belt, but when we looked at his training, you would see that same pattern. You would see ramp up in volume, distance, and some intensity, but then there was always these pieces where he had to take some time away. And it was never anything major that like broke on him, but he had to take 1-2 weeks off and then try to find out where to restart his training. Now, eventually, right, if you keep doing that, that's going to start messing with your mental state. And so with him, we were able to find that pattern and look ahead and plan in cycles for him. And that benefited him greatly because it told him the why we were doing what we were doing. It helped him understand the purpose behind runs, how runs should feel. And moving forward, it built confidence, not only because he was staying consistent, but because he understood what we were doing. Another one of my athletes, she came to me later in life, already running for many, many years. But again, it wasn't consistent. Now, she wasn't trying to, win any races, wasn't trying to podium her age group or anything like that. She just wanted to enjoy running. And the problem was she kept running herself into a hole, right? So once we were able to, again, look at her plan and see that pattern, or look at her past training anyways and see that pattern, then we were able to build differently for her and in a way that allowed her to stay consistent. And some of the feedback I got from her after finishing races and then able to get back to running shortly after that was that she was enjoying running again, right? And that is what the whole purpose is. Like, we're running because we enjoy it, and we want to do that in a way that we can continue to do it for the rest of the life. And that is one of my main goals as a coach. So I want to share a few things that you can take away from this video and put into your training, even if you don't want to hire a coach. So first off, almost every runner believes that volume or miles is where the magic happens. That's how you get fitter. I couldn't disagree more. The miles and the high intensity runs that you do, you don't get fitter during that, right? It's after that. It's during the easy days. It's during your off days where you absorb all of that work, right? So where people like to add extra miles is during that time, right? Instead of taking an off day, they want to put more volume in. Instead of running their easy days actually easy, they want to run it harder because they're trying to prove something. And that is when breakdown starts to happen, because you're not allowing your body to absorb that fitness that you've worked so hard to try to attain, right? So run your easy days easy, or just take a day off after you do the hard work. Speaking of easy, that is probably the most misunderstood word with runners. People hear easy and they think lazy, or they think unproductive because they're not testing their fitness. They're not pushing hard. Again, I think that is the most productive time for our fitness. If we worked hard and pushed on the days we're supposed to push to, that is when we're going to gain that fitness, if we're actually running our easy days easy. Everyone's heard that on those easy days, we should be running at a conversational pace, having a conversation without the need to pause to catch our breath. If we're there, if we're doing that, and on other days we're pushing hard, we are going to gain fitness, okay? We're gonna get durability because we're staying consistent. We're not digging ourselves a hole. Ultra marathons don't reward all those hero days. They reward durability. And running your easy days easy makes you durable. A staple of any ultra training plan, even a marathon training plan for that matter, is fatigue. Now, fatigue isn't the enemy, right? Running on fatigued legs is something you hear all over the ultra running community and even some of the marathon training plans. Again, fatigue isn't the enemy, unmanaged fatigue is. So we have no fatigue and overly fatigued on either side of this window. In the middle is where the magic happens, right? Managing that fatigue with those easy days being easy, the hard days being hard, not staying in that middle zone the whole time, right? The gray zone. We don't want to stay in that gray zone. That is where unmanaged fatigue starts to build. And with unmanaged fatigue, typically right after that is we start seeing, bad days stacking on top of each other. If we continue to push, starts to lead to injury, right? So I'll leave you with this. One bad day, not a big deal, right? We can't have all good days, right? If we had all good days, running wouldn't be very much fun. Like that really great day wouldn't be so great. Now, multiple bad days in a row, that's when we need to be worried. Okay, let's talk about consistency. I've already talked about durability and how that is a marker that you're going to do well in ultra. Consistency is also that, right? If we're able to stay consistent, we're going to build fitness and be more physically prepared and also mentally prepared because we're confident in our training. Now, the problem with that is people chase consistency even though, there's all these other warning signs, right? There are warning signs of, my foot's starting to hurt or my shin or I'm not sleeping well. I feel like I'm at a higher effort at the same pace that I was last week or the week before, right? These are all warning signs that we might be training too much or too hard and then chasing consistency. So consistency, if we take 1 or 2 days off because we are listening to those warning signs, right? We're listening to, I'm not sleeping well, or I'm waking up multiple times in the middle of the night to go pee, or my shins are starting to hurt, right? If we listen to those early on and do the things to take care of those, get more sleep, go get a sports massage, do some extra stretching, that's gonna save us from missing the 2 or 3 weeks that we're eventually gonna have to take off if we ignore it. Okay, so 1 or 2 missed days, 1 or 2 missed runs because we're chasing consistency, not a big deal. 2 or 3 weeks, a much bigger deal. And what usually happens is those 2 or 3 weeks fall during the most important part of your training because we ignore it early on. Okay, so don't chase consistency and ignore all of these warning signs. Finishing in ultra isn't determined by how many hero workouts you completed, how much grit you showed, or how much you suffered through training. In fact, those are probably all things that are indicators that you're not even going to get to the start line if you try to do so many of those, right? What determines your success at an ultra is how healthy you are near the race, how confident you are in your training, and in my opinion, the knowledge around why you're training the way you're training. A large part of running and finishing ultra is in your brain. It's that mental fortitude, and those that understood their training, understood why they did, what they were asked to do, and then in turn gave the right efforts during the right time, those are the athletes that are going to be way more capable at finishing in ultra. Once you start to realize everything that we've talked about in this video, that is where everything starts to come together, right? I don't coach workouts. I coach context. I coach the why behind workouts. I love to educate my athletes, and because of that, they feel confident in the training that they're doing, right? That is why I built the 4-cycle framework. So cycle 1, we stabilize. Early on, we just remove all the noise, right? We just get consistent. We make sure we understand how runs should feel, and we have a lot of communication about RPE. And once we build consistency, only then can we go into cycle 2, and that's build, right? That's when we can start adding in some intensity, but it's not just random intensity, right? It's intensity with intent, right? With a purpose behind it. And that purpose, the athletes understand and know, and that allows them to go hard on those days and then also go easy on the days they're supposed to go easy. All right, after cycle 2, we can build during that cycle. After cycle 2, cycle 3, most ultras require some kind of specialization, some kind of individual specific work for that type of terrain. And that is when we can specialize only after that we've removed the noise, got consistent, built in some intensity, built up our volume, built in durability and confidence. We can start to specialize in the race. We can do this in all sorts of different ways, but we're going to do it in a way that also allows us to maintain that build that we did in the cycle before that. And then finally, after we finish the race, after we feel, as we should after an ultra marathon, we absorb and rest. Okay, this is a very important part of the framework. Is we just went through this big long phase of staring at this peak of the mountain, this big event, this big goal that we had. That is very physically demanding, obviously, but it is also mentally demanding, right? We move stuff around on our calendar, we miss social outings, we maybe sacrificed, some time with our loved ones for this goal. Now it's time to just back off a little bit. We don't have to stop running completely, but definitely don't run because the calendar says so, right? Spend some time with your loved ones, enjoy them, do some social stuff, just step away from running and focusing on this, big goal. It doesn't have to be for long, but eventually your brain will tell you when you're ready to go back again for that next big thing, right? And that is where this framework works, is because we're able to then go on to this next big event that we want to train for. We're not broken down and beat up from this training plan, this singular event, right? We're training for longevity. We're training so we can run for the rest of our life because that is something we enjoy doing. We love to run. We've covered a lot in this video. We covered why more mileage isn't always the answer. We covered why easy is probably the most misunderstood word in runners. We covered why it's important to be consistent, but not at the detriment of your health. And we also covered why, or what are the main factors that are going to help you finish an ultramarathon. Now, I'm confident if you implement even one of these things into your training plan, you will see improvements in your performance. You'll see improvements in your consistency, hopefully your confidence in what you're doing. But there's still a missing piece. That missing piece is the individualized coaching that having a one-on-one coach provides, right? The individualized coaching of, how do I fit X run or X number of runs, or how do I fit this week that this plan is asking me into my schedule, my lifestyle? How much miles, how much intensity can my body absorb before I need to take some time off, right? Why I'm doing what I'm doing. Why is this run important for the greater goal? Or I have something coming up on a Saturday. Can I miss this run? Can I move this day over here? Which run during the week is important during this cycle, right? Those are all things that having a coach solves, right? So if you're looking for personal coaching, no hype, no guesswork, no generic plans, you can reach out to me on Instagram. We'll have a conversation, see where you are in your ultra journey. No pressure, just clarity.